A lot of the community members come in, they want a job, but they are not willing to pay the cost, right? If you're by yourself and you're looking for work, not that much of a pressure, right? But then you got wife and kids to feed and you got bills, it makes you hunger that much more. It's a driving force, right? That's essentially it.
People find value in the money that they pay for things. If you don't pay for it, you don't find value in it, you don't use it.
I think Einstein said it best, right? Einstein said, if I had an hour to solve a complex problem, I would spend the first 55 minutes first trying to understand the problem. Because if I understood what the problem was, I could solve it in less than 5 minutes, right? So just a little bit of context, right? This was part of my masterclass which I shared with the community a while ago, a couple of years ago. But essentially, this is the foundation for decision making, right? A lot of people, they talk about frameworks. In Agile world specifically, there's so many different frameworks. People are for some framework, or there's divisions and all those kind of things. But they fail to see that the framework is not the first thing. Framework is actually, there's a lot of stuff that comes before it, right? So think of if you're building your house or your home, the first thing you'd want to do is get with the designer. You create a model of it, right? Maybe even a 3D rendering of what it looks like, and you visualize what that looks like. And then the engineer and the architects get involved and they create a blueprint, right? And when the blueprint's done, then comes the foundation, they dig deep and pour the foundation depending on however big the home is going to be. And then after that, the framework comes in, right? And the reason, because the home that you design for yourself, that framework that's there, that may not work for somebody else, right? And that's where a lot of the challenges and the dysfunction happens, is because they want to preach the framework, but it's customized and bespoke to them, right? It doesn't work. So that's kind of the premise of some of the stuff that I created. And more importantly, other than all that, is just a way to make decisions, right? As we were making a lot of the decisions, a lot of the decisions we were making earlier, and there's a model to it, right? There's the outcome, and there's a few more pieces. Why, what, and how, right? A lot of people get fixated on the how, but how is actually towards the tail end. You want to understand the outcome and such first, right? So that's kind of the context of it, and I'll kind of walk through this. We'll spend a few minutes watching it, and of course, open it up for the questions that we have. Please let me know when you can see. And if I run through this too quick, please stop me and ask questions. I'll slow down and kind of go through it, right? So as you see, we label it Simply Agile Movement, right? Because that's essentially what we felt is happening. This was done in 2022, so a couple of years. So some of the information there will be a little bit dated, but essentially that's the direction, and it should give us a bit of context, right? So here we go. Right. So essentially there's two pieces to it. There's a small video that talks about a movement, how to start a movement by Derek Silvers. There's an overview, and then of course the model, how that applies to us. And here you see that, we label it a Simply Agile Movement because it's created the intersection of leadership and Agile, right? A lot of times you just think of it, but if you look at it, it's actually at the intersection. That's where we created it. And it's of course powered by a for-benefit company and a community of leaders. Shall we get started? Here we go.
So ladies and gentlemen, at TED, we talk a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not two nuts, 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, and immediately after, 3 more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those that were sitting on the fence before now have no reason not to. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So over the next minute, you'll see all of the those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement.
Hopefully you guys had a chance to watch the video, right? Any thoughts, comments? Is this something that you've seen the first time, or have you seen this before?
It's the first time I've seen it. but I loved it because it ties right into the 8-minute talk I'm doing and follows the blog post that I just created. So couldn't be happier with seeing that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Ron, any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I thought it conveyed a really interesting message that, yeah, the first one is very over glorified. It's the first few followers that you really have to like pay attention to. And yeah, I thought it was really like a great statement to say that, yeah, if you treat them as equals, I think that's like what really helps like set like a wave going. Like you just need a strong like group of people that come with you and bring everyone else.
Yeah, what did you think about what we were just talking like a couple minutes earlier, right? People waiting at different times, right? What did you think about that?
Yeah, I think like, yeah, like, as like we're talking about like Bitcoin, like the greater the value of Bitcoin is like going up, like the more like traction it has with like overall with people, and like the more people are like hearing about it, they're like, oh, maybe this is a good investment.
And same thing with anything new, right? Like for iPhone, when iPhone released, how many people wanted to jump on there? But then there was others like, hey, I'm gonna wait till it's Series 6 or 7. Right? It's not safe enough for me yet. But then there were people that waiting in line for like 2 days to get their hands on the first one, right? Tolu, you were about to say something.
No, as in I've watched it, but I was saying it's something that I don't mind keep watching, right? It draws a powerful lesson, right? For anything you're going to start, right? Be it an enterprise, be it whatever, it's not just about you, it's about the first follow-up. From there, you build upon. And I think that's where you just gather momentum. But tying it to what we do, right? It's all about, it's not really about us, but it's about the people that join in and the momentum and the later join in.
Absolutely. Victor, any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, actually, this is the second time I'm watching the video. You've showed us the video before when we had a meeting with the coaches. Yeah, as Crush and Co. So, like Tolu said, this is something I think I will keep watching over and over again. That was one. There are lots of lessons from here. One of the lessons I think I'm getting here is this, right? Now, a lot of people follow movements or service or whatever it is for different reasons. For example, the shirtless guy had a movement, probably a service. Now, there's a difference between the first few people that followed and then the crowd. You know, some people who follow because they understand the business, the movements. Now, a certain other people follow so that they will not be left out. Whoa, they are joining the crowd. So this is something I just need to understand. So, and I think I also have seen it here in our team, you know, how we emphasize on getting some key people. Once we get them, they will help get the rest. Because that's what we need to understand. Be it influencers, be it some other people, because not everyone will entirely key into your movement. Not everyone will key into your movement. But trust me, everyone will follow. Most of them are following because they don't want to be left on the fence, or they are following because this is what is trending. Now, most people focus on those people. That's why they've not gotten anywhere. So we need to focus on those ones who actually need to understand where we are going, understand the movement, understand the service, understand what you're doing, what it entails. Once we're able to get them and they love it, then definitely they'll be able to pass the information to every other one.
Yeah, man, make sure all what you said, definitely love it. I mean, like,
That was great.
for me, I watched this hundreds of times, this video, and to me, it was an inspiration from the early days, right? Because I started this like January of 2021 to start building. Hundreds of people I talked to, hundreds and hundreds of people like, nope. Yes, one person. All right, come on, get in the dance, do that. But that's essentially how it works, right? You saw, oh, sorry, Graham, I didn't ask you. Any comments, thoughts? You've been with us from early on. You've seen a lot of this stuff come through. So any comments, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the video many times. It's a good reminder, I think, of, where we're going and the effort it kind of takes, I think. And, we're like, you're the lone nut, right? And we're the followers, and we're all in this together, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger. So.
Absolutely. As you just observed, right? The first person came on, he just made it better. Next person came on, made it that much better, right? Like when Graham came on, I was wanting to go in this direction. Graham's like, hey, there's a better way. Show me, Graham. And then we did it. And it's so much better, right? So, yeah, team, that's essentially, and the reason I like this one is because it encapsulates hours and hours of conceptual stuff into under 3 minutes, because it kind of covers the beginning all the way to the progression. And that's essentially what you'll see. And we're about to hit the conference, and you will see this happen. Like, people that are on the fence, then it's like, that's the cool thing, because they want to be part of it. They don't want to be left behind, right? And that's what you'll see over the next few days and months and years, right? So let me share with you a little bit more of the progression of the concepts. Right? What we just watched was the video that kind of encapsulates all those things, right? And then the model, are you able to see?
Yep.
All right, so then we kind of go into the overview a little bit, right? And to me, there's so many complex things to look at, but these were universal questions that kept coming up, right? So I just made it into a formula, right? Outcome equals Y plus what plus how, right? Because if you have any of these pieces, then you should be able to understand, right? And that's essentially what we did here. If outcome is N and we got A plus B plus C, right? And you said if outcome is 10 and we knew that Y and what equals 2 and 3, can we figure out the how?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, simple as that. And that's essentially what we did, right? And one thing you'd observe is that how comes towards the end, right? A lot of people want to talk about how. I think Einstein said it best, right? Einstein said, if I had an hour to solve a complex problem, I would spend the first 55 minutes first trying to understand the problem. Because if I understood what the problem was, I could solve it in less than 5 minutes, right? And that's essentially what we've done for the past 2 years, is build a foundation, understand our community, understand the ask. And every single thing that we put in is kind of based on this, right? So that's essentially what the model is. That's how complex it is. And what does that mean?
I add some complexity to it. So I just brought this up because when I did a talk in Portugal last year, I actually talked about this exact thing, except for I had one more element to the pluses, and that was where. And I think we all forget about the where. And if you don't know where you're doing all this stuff, then you don't have the right environment to complete it. And so that might be something that we consider later.
Yeah.
I think it was a really interesting revelation by some of the people in the audience when I brought that up. So maybe we could talk about that a little bit later.
Sure, absolutely. And also who, right? People want to ask who. That's also all the feedback that I've gotten is kind of who, what, where, when. All those are kind of like the subsets of the how, right? Because we always the location, the frequency, all the elements that kind of go into it, right?
Yep.
So I put some verbiage around it just to kind of keep the definition simple, right? What is the outcome? Outcome is the end goal. It's the expected and predictable experience, right? The outcome is not only the result, but the future state of where you'd like to be. Unlike the result, which is a byproduct where not much control is necessary, instead of an outcome is intentional, right? With much thought given throughout the process to achieve the expected and predictable experience, right? That's kind of the definition around that. Does that seem okay? Any comments, questions on that? These are some of the outcomes that we're considering, Carol. Like when we looked at the community, the needs of the community members, right? One of the first things we wanted was a safe space for open conversations, right? No judgment, no fear of judgment, being who you are, sharing those things. Connect and collaborate virtually with your peers, right? Global community all over the world, value-based leadership, right? A lot of times leadership is not at the forefront, but we're looking at outcome-based decisioning, because a lot of the stuff that we put in place is understanding what are the outcomes we're wanting to achieve, and build trust for transparency. Everything is all transparent. Anybody in the community can see it. And of course, the inclusive nature of it, respect all cultures all over the world, different cultures, different races, and all those kind of things. But more importantly, community aspect, building healthy relationships, right? So these are kind of some of the outcomes that we're looking at. So now we know what the outcome we're wanting to achieve. Let's talk about the why. The definition around why. Why is essentially the motive or the cause, right? Why are we doing this? Why is the motivating factor or the force for you to go in a specific direction? It may be, but not limited to the strategic vision or objective. Why is essentially the driving force, and it provides a sense of purpose. So what was our why? Our world's changed. New normal. Pandemic kind of level set everything, right? All over the world, every single person in the world impacted, right? Agile alone is not even enough, right? We need leaders that are willing to make a difference, right? We want to build a better future. We need leaders who value people over profits, right? Think of all the thousands and thousands of layoffs, right? Just to balance the books, versus if they thought about the people, they would make different decisions. And knowing alone is not enough. Everybody has ideas, right? Doing it is hard work. Everybody knows what to do, but right? And that's essentially some of the whys behind why we're doing anything, right? It's not easy to build a community, but we kind of went down that path. Does this help? Any questions, comments on this?
It's
Yes.
interesting because I heard somebody say this weekend that what was it? I wrote it down. I'm trying to find the exact words, but it's something along the lines of division created profits. We need to find profits in unity. And I loved that. I wrote it down. I got to go find it and share it with you guys because it was like it just, to me, that's what we're trying to do too, right? It's like together we're so much more than.
Absolutely. And together we'll thrive, right? That's the session. We're trying to unite all the actions. So we got two elements, right? We talked about the outcome. We talked about the why. What? Let's define what, right? What essentially, I said, is a problem statement. What do we want to solve? Think of it as framing the problem to solve. Could be, but not limited to the requirements, right? And any additional supporting information to clarify the problem. What is the list of issues or dysfunctions that we would like to diagnose? But essentially the problem statement. Seem good? What is it that we were wanting to solve for, right? We said, create an environment for globally distributed Simply Agile communities to connect and collaborate virtually in real time. That's it. That's just the one thing we chose. We could have chosen many, many different things, but instead of looking at many things, we just chose the one thing, right? That's why you see the platform, the way it's designed, and now the mobile app and everything to kind of go along with it. But this is essentially the problem that we were trying to solve. What does it need for all people to unite, right? And those just all over the world to unite. We need to have a safe place where we can do all this. But essentially an environment, physical, virtual, all those kind of things, right? But this one, we're wanting it to be virtual so that way we can all connect. Seem good?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and
Sorry, can you go back to the why for a minute?
sure. You want to see the word?
Yeah, I want to see that. Yeah. Okay. So the what was kind of the why is the so that, right? The what so that this, right? I was trying to like say so what to me. So this was yeah, that's cool. Good. Thank you. Yeah.
I kind of like the word driving force. It's kind of impactful, you know. As I was just saying it, I kind of remember last 2 months, there was someone who came to me to learn video editing. You know, the guy learns video editing within 2 weeks. I, myself, I've seen people learn video editing so fast, but I was kind of admiring the force pushing him. He was laid off from his work. He had children. He had bills to pay. That was something backing him.
Absolutely. And, you know, you can also use the word hunger, right? How hungry are you? A lot of the community members come in, they want a job, but they're not willing to pay the costs, right? If you're by yourself and you're looking for work, not that much of a pressure, right? But then you got wife and kids to feed and you got bills, it makes you hunger that much more. It's a driving force, right? That's essentially it.
That aligns very well with legacy statement, the ending of the legacy statement that I said, we are more than agile. We are a force for change.
Absolutely. Yes, Carol, and every single thing, that's why I loved it when you framed it, right? Because all of it, every single thing that you, without even knowing this, it came through, right? And it connects every single piece of what you created.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to know the how because that's the easiest thing to talk about, right? Everybody wants to know how. How are you going to do it? Here's the definition around that, right? How? How is essentially the proposed solution. How do we aim to achieve it? How do we want to solve, right? How is the way to solve for the what? We figured out the what. Now we essentially solving, right? All the details, pieces, steps to achieve the what and deliver on the expected outcome. It has to meet the outcome, right? You could solve it different ways, but does it meet the outcome, right? Think good?
Yep.
How are we going to do this? All right, so this is a little bit dated, as you can see, but there's 3 things essentially what we talked about at that time, right? Community, belongship. Belongship is a concept coined by Sangam Vajri. I'll share that with you guys. I'll also give you the video that he kind of presented at LeaderCast and also he did with Andy Stanley at North Point. But we kind of distilled it down to 3 pieces that we want to focus on: community, servant leadership, and leveraging some of the technology to make it happen, right? So how did we do this? We talked about community. And this is where I saw this at LeaderCast a few years ago, and it just kind of blew my mind because what he said is without a community.
I love it.
Yeah. And I watched him at LeaderCast and I watched him again and I actually met him at one of the prayer breakfasts and I said, hey man, I was so inspired by this. And by the way, the slides that you were seeing, I actually even sent the Sangam after he had presented and I chatted with him and he and I connected. And then he watched the entire thing, what you're just seeing, and he's like, he loved it.
Nice.
Good. But essentially, I was inspired by him talking about community and the power of community. I really didn't realize how powerful it is until this. That's why we invested so much time and money, everything, building the foundation, because that is the foundation for all the stuff we're doing. Servant leadership, hierarchy versus decentralized ownership, org chart versus collaboration, dictatorship versus self-governance, right? And these are some of the things that we wanted, not just for our team, a leadership team as a whole, but our community as well, right? Decentralized ownership, every single person in the community is empowered to be themselves, to share, learn, all those things, right? I'll just pause right here. Carol, any comments, thoughts on what you see here?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I agree with all the things on the right, but the thing on the left, I'm over. I think people misrepresent the words and the phrase servant leadership. I think about it more as maybe leaders who serve than servant leadership. But I understand the point. It's just, I think that, yeah, I mean, it's in this context, it works, but understanding how it's perceived in the entire community, it's not understood properly. So I think we have to be careful in how we use the term servant leadership.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where a lot of the dysfunction stems from, right? Because everybody's interpretation of it is different, but we kind of simplified it. Okay, what 3 things should we focus on? And this is it, right? Empowerment, leveraging technology, right? Yeah. We've been doing that. Yep. Zoom. At that time, a little over 2 years ago, we were doing Zoom, right? Not anymore, but that's fair.
That's okay. Still, a lot of people use it.
Yeah, this is what we, at that little over 2 years ago, this is how we felt we'd solve it, right? Wix. Graham came along and is like, hey man, there's a better way. This is the piece of technology we're going to need to make everything happen, but it's way more complex than that, right? But that's what we were kind of thinking at that time. This is what I wanted to spend a moment on. All the stuff that we talked about, all the questions that we have, essentially comes down to this. This is essentially a snapshot of the business plan, right? Of all the stuff that you've seen. Everybody has a different version of the business plan, but I used my model and I came up with this and said, hey, this is what we are kind of focused on. So please take a look at that and I'll just kind of walk through each of these. The verbiage has changed, some of the functionalities changed, some of the solutions have changed, right? However, when we look at the community as a whole, we've done many experiments, many different platforms used. At that point in time, we were leveraging Lake and Group. Not the best solution, right? Until now we have the solution that we have, right? We were also doing a check-in with the community every week. We called it Simply Agile Unscripted. This was kind of like AMA / meet the coach / pretty much anybody that had a need would come and show up and we would talk about it, figure out a way to solve it, right? All those things being free. Small groups, we haven't done it yet. But as the community grows, we get leaders that are wanting to take charge of this specific area. They want to meet with a handful of people. They can do that. That will come. We haven't done it. Mentor and mentee, yeah, we did Mentor Talks initiative, right? We kind of made it free samples they can connect. Now we're kind of looking at the coaching, right? We have a few coaches that we're starting with. We're going to launch Allies Network here at the conference, right? Training, I just labeled it as masterclass because at that time there was only one product. That was my masterclass, right? But now we have Stephanie and other coaches having their own products, right? And then there might be other products associated with it, like the coaches will offer, right? Just like the one-on-one coaching that you see, also their courses and things like that. And at that point, all these subsequent things were question marks. We had no idea how we were going to solve the jobs. 80 to 90% of the community members that came in, the first thing they asked is, can you help me with the job? Can you help me with the job, right? But now we have the jobs platform, which we'll leverage and invite others to join and post jobs, right? Merchandising, we did a little bit of experiments. We have some idea. Some of the swag coaches, they may have their own swag, right? We'll solve that.
If we prioritize that, I know where that would go.
And we'll talk about it, right? We'll definitely talk about it at the conference, get some list of things that we want to create, and we'll launch that. Big question mark here, Carol, consulting, right? We touched on it briefly a while ago, but yeah, this is a big question mark. Are we going to do it? Right?
It starts with the C, so we have to do it.
Absolutely. We just drop it for sure. And over 3 years,
there's only space for three C's.
Well, we'll have to figure out a way. We'll have to solve for that problem.
coaches, companies, and consulting. There we go. It may not be that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. 3 C's, 5 C's. I don't know. Venture capital, even early on when looking at the foundation of things, right? That's why we created the company as an S Corp. There's so many startups that'll come through as the community grows. As we have some additional capital, we'll be investing in some of the startups, right? We're not there yet for sure, but it's part of the roadmap, if you will, the vision, right? AI tool, A lot of the modeling blueprint already you're using significant amount of AI functionality, right? It's part of the platform. It's definitely part of the jobs platform. Gives a score, right? All those things. Blockchain. The earlier solution that we looked at is creating the certs on the blockchain, where every time a certificate is issued, right, it'll be on the blockchain and it'll have the, all the capability that goes with it. But these were some of the things that we're considering, some of the potentials for generating revenue, but essentially every single one of these is coming from the needs of the community, right? The needs of the community. Does this go? Have you?
I think it's awesome. It's a great place to start our conversations. It used to be that like some of these companies that created platforms created free, but in order to make money, had to find a way to start doing advertising and algorithm and all of that kind of stuff. And I think after like talking to Aaron, for example, and he's just joined this one that's called this community, which is the OKR Mentors community. They charge to be a part of that community. And I think that in order to disrupt what we've got today, we can't be a follower. We need to be a leader. And maybe we consider how we change, because we know that people find value in the money that they pay for things. If you don't pay for it, you don't find value in it, you don't use it. So maybe there's a way for us to figure out a way to charge a nominal fee after a certain, like we ask the community, like, is this something that you'd pay for $5 a month? Right? Yep. You think about that, you get 1 million people, that's $5 million a month.
Yep.
Right? And then that way we don't have to use advertising and we don't have to use algorithms. So we get people who want to be a part of this community to be a part of this community. And so that way you get the right people at the right time, deliver the right value and make the right decisions. Sorry, I have a poem about that too, but
no, right? Because looking at the needs, because I'm very sensitive to ads. I'll just use the word I'm sensitive to ads. I'll leave it at that. Disrupting the community, right? I don't want spam. That's what a lot of the other social media platforms is ad-based. That's how the revenue generated, but at a heavy cost, right? If you're dilemma, right? Tristan Harris talked about that years ago, and he's created a movement around it, right? But that's what platform leaders that are there have to be aware of those things, and that's where have been filtered a lot of the decisions that we've made. And every single company that will come on, right? It's not an ads or spam. Instead, they're a part of that. They're providing value, like the groups, subgroups, paid groups, private groups, all this kind of things, right? We have to intentionally create that in a good way, right? A lot of those are question marks, but we'll figure it out. We don't have to do everything at once. We just showed one thing and we kind of went with it, right?
Right.
Psychologically, beneath every human being, there is this genuine interest in what is good and what is right.
Yep.
So, they might not agree, but the truth is when something is good and there is a value coming out of it, definitely, if there's a way creatively we can bring in the income, I think whoever finds something to be productive and engaging will also go for it.
Absolutely. And we as leaders of, the team, we're building these, and this is essentially it, team. Something extremely complex, solved in a simpler way by using the predictable outcome model, right? That's what I created. There's a lot of things. And Carol, I actually presented the blueprint component of it to PMI. That's like almost a 40-minute conversation where I shared with the leaders there, and it's recorded as well. I'll share that link with you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, this essentially it. This is what we were looking at 2 years ago, right? And the QR codes may go to some groups and whatnot, but that's the early on. But essentially, right? I was asking the community at that point over 2 years ago, let's collaborate to build a community and company where we can learn, grow, and do life together. Right? That's the essence. And that's pretty much it. That's a nutshell view of where we
Said
started.
the loan not created.
Yep.